Have you ever wondered who really decides how our cities, towns, and neighborhoods are shaped? Why some spaces feel fair and accessible, while others still reflect old patterns of inequality? In South Africa, the answer lies in how the constitution, Spluma, and local planning systems are connected to shape our everyday environment.
Come on now, let's briefly explore these regulations so that we are not surprised in the next videos when they are mentioned or said briefly. Welcome on a journey with me in African Spatial Studio.
So, let's start at the top. South Africa's constitution is the highest law of the land. It is not just a legal document, it's a spatial vision. It says everyone has the right to equality, to dignity, to housing and safe environment. That means how we design and use the space must reflect justice, inclusion, and sustainability. To put these in action, the government introduced SPLUMA, which stands for the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act of 2013. SPLUMA is the national framework that guides how land is planned, used, and developed. It rests on five key principles: on spatial justice, spatial sustainability, efficiency, spatial resistance, and good administration. In short, it makes sure that all planning decisions from national to local levels aim to correct past inequalities and create sustainable, inclusive spaces. From there, Spluma connects downward through provinces and municipalities. Provinces develop provincial spatial development frameworks, which set out regional priorities for growth, infrastructure, and conservation. They create integrated development plans, spatial development frameworks, and land use management bylaws. These are the rules that guide zoning, land use, and building control. And then we get to the local plan, the real ground level. This is where policy and principles become places. You get local area plans, precinct plan, and site development plans show how land will actually be used, where people live, how they move, where they gather, and how landscape connects. It's here that the designers, planners, and community work together to turn the idea of constitution and spluma into visible lived spaces. The Constitution remains our highest law, but today its promises are being tested. Municipal failures challenges the right to water, sanitation, and healthy environment. Land reform debates questions how Section 25 should be interpreted. Informal settlement keep expanding because the right to housing is far from realized. A good law struggling against real-world obstacles. Spluma was designed to fix fragmented apartheid planning, but today South Africa faces municipal planning collapses in many regions, blockage in housing application or in land use application, lack of capacity in rural municipalities, conflict between traditional authorities and municipal planners, investors also pulling out due to uncertainties. Yet, Plumer's five principles, spatial justice, sustainability, efficiency, reliance, and good administration remain the blueprint of fixing our current challenges. We also see that in provincials, climate, infrastructure, and economies, there's a whole lot of shift there. Provincial spatial development frameworks now deal with climate adaptation after severe floodings in areas like in KZN, Western Cape, and Eastern Cape, rail collapses and logistics failure impacting city regional economy, rapid rural to urban migration, drought cycles that reshape agricultural and water planning, energy transition planning. Provinces are no longer only planning growth, they are planning survival and resilience, which I think is becoming a huge problem in South Africa. This is where we get to experience the real battle of spatial justice. Municipalities are where planning becomes real, but today's reality include some cities improving, let's say, for example, Stellenbosch, Cape Town, Mhlatunzi. Many municipalities collapsing, especially when we look at Northwest, Free State, KZN. And current issues being or including building bans due to infrastructure failure, informal settlement outpacing planning, corruption in land and land allocation, illegal land invasion, house block backlog growing yearly, load shedding disrupting building and infrastructure timeline.
As mentioned before, that spatial design or spatial fields have governances or structures that govern them. There's also parties that play part in this governance, like traditional authorities. However, there has been some key tensions in the past few years, and these may include, and you'll see them in most part of the country, where in KZN, in Limpopo, in Eastern Cape, and Pumalanga, where traditional councils allocate land, often without cadastral updates, where provincial and national government increasingly push for rural development zones, investors are hesitant because of dual land governance, and communities demanding formal alternatives to access finance, and court cases challenging the power of traditional leaders versus the community. These issues that I have mentioned affect rural housing, mining approvals, renewable energy projects, agricultural expansion, village spatial development plans. These issues, together with local plans, are the ones to decide where South Africa would be going, which kind of direction South Africa would go in growth. Local plans, precinct plans, neighborhood plans, rural development plans are the tool we need mostly today. Altogether agreeing with agencies that are standing up for human rights, human equalities, and also socio-economic development. South Africa has diverse tribes. We live in different ways everywhere. So that all this local plan, including how people live in South Africa, will give us a better direction in growth. The local government or the local plans should deal or will deal or have to deal with informal settlement upgrading. And I'm using this informal settlement upgrading loosely, and we will get into it in next or coming videos. And then township economic note, village rejuvenation, and do not get this wrong, village rejuvenation is not to eradicate rurality, because I understand that in South Africa or in many countries, even developed countries, there's so much ruralities. I mean, even in Cape Town, you will see there's a whole lot of ruralities, especially in the South Peninsula, the Southern Peninsula. And also rural service center, transit-oriented development, climate-resistant corridors, public space redesign for safety and mobility. This is where practitioners like me, landscape architects, urban designers, planners, architects become very critical.
So next time when you walk in a park, wait at a taxi rank, or sit outside your home, remember this. These spaces were shaped by a decision that began with Constitution, continued through Spluma, and came to life through local planning. And that means spatial design in South Africa is not just about buildings, it's about justice, memory, healing, and hope. It's about redesigning a country one street, one park, and one community at a time. Join me again on the next videos as we utilize the information that we have touched on today. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for being part of this community. Bye.